It was a slow Tuesday morning on the edge of town, where the trees cast long shadows over the cracked two-lane highway. Officer Trent Mallory was already irritated, his coffee was cold, the radio static, and the department had just extended mandatory patrol hours. He wasn't in the mood for delays or difficult drivers. So when he spotted the faded beige sedan drifting slightly over the shoulder line near mile marker 12, he didn't hesitate. Lights on. Siren blip. He flipped the cruiser around and pulled the vehicle over near a dusty rest stop. Inside the car sat an elderly man, calm and collected, hands at 10 and 2. His silver hair was neatly combed, and he wore a simple gray jacket with a leather folder on the passenger seat. No shaking, no confusion, just a quiet stare forward, waiting. Trent approached slowly, tapping the window twice with 2 fingers. The man rolled it down halfway. "You know why I pulled you over, sir?" Trent asked, voice sharper than it needed to be. "I'm afraid I don't," the man replied, voice steady, eyes unblinking. "Was I speeding?" "You were weaving a bit. I need your license, registration, and proof of insurance." Trent leaned down, looking for signs of confusion or delay, something to justify dragging this out. Instead, the man handed over his documents without hesitation. His name read, Henry J. Maddox. Trent narrowed his eyes. Something about the name scratched at the back of his mind. But he shook it off and said coldly, "Sit tight." He returned to the cruiser, annoyed by how calm the man was acting. Trent wanted to teach this driver a lesson. But when he ran the name through the database, the screen blinked. Then something strange happened. Every system paused. A red banner popped up across his screen, "Do not detain, high-level clearance, contact supervisor immediately." Trent blinked. What? He looked back at the man in the sedan, who was still calmly sitting with his hands on the wheel. Who was this guy? Trent stared at the alert flashing across his dashboard. High-level clearance. Contact supervisor. He'd never seen anything like it in his entire 5 years on patrol. He clicked the radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Mallory, Unit 6. I've got a code red identification flag on a routine traffic stop. Name reads Henry J. Maddox. Can you confirm?" There was a pause on the other end, longer than usual. Then a voice came through, quieter than normal. "Unit 6, stand by. Do not escalate. Supervisor en route to your location. ETA 5 minutes. Trent's brow furrowed. What was happening? He glanced up again at the sedan. The man hadn't moved an inch. Still calm. Still waiting. Now the officer's mind raced. Was this guy part of federal law enforcement? Intelligence? A protected witness? Or worse, some kind of internal affairs plant? Suddenly Trent felt very, very exposed. He tried to recompose himself and stepped back out of the cruiser, approaching the sedan more carefully this time. "Mr. Maddox," he said, voice now noticeably less firm, "I may need you to stay here a few more minutes. There's just a clarification I need from my supervisor." "That's quite all right," Maddox said, looking ahead, not even glancing at him. "Take your time." That calm tone, it wasn't just composed. It was practiced. Powerful. Trent could feel it now. He hadn't pulled over some random old man. This wasn't a retiree on his way to the grocery store. No. This man was someone. Someone important. And suddenly, Trent's earlier arrogance was starting to feel like a very big mistake. Trent shifted uncomfortably beside the sedan, unsure whether to return to his cruiser or just stand there like a rookie. The usual confidence he wore like a badge had slipped. He felt exposed now, like the man in the car was silently appraising him, weighing his every word and move. Then, from down the road, a black SUV approached fast and quiet. It didn't have police markings, but Trent recognized the driver. It was Captain Riley, his direct superior. And riding shotgun was someone Trent didn't recognize, a clean-cut man in a tailored suit, dark sunglasses, earpiece in place. Government. No doubt. The SUV came to a smooth stop behind Trent's cruiser. Riley stepped out first, stone-faced, walking with tight posture. He didn't even greet Trent. Just motioned for him to step aside. "Wait by your unit," Riley said firmly. "Do not say another word." Trent nodded and backed off without argument. Something in Riley's tone told him now wasn't the time to push. The man in the suit approached Maddox's window and tapped once. Maddox rolled it down, finally turning to look at him. There was a moment of silence, and then the agent gave a slight nod. "You good, sir?" Maddox offered a faint smile. "All good. Just a bit of misunderstanding." Riley leaned toward the agent. "What do we do?" The agent kept his voice low, but Trent could still catch a few words. "Former Federal, Confidential, Oversight Board, not to be stopped under any circumstance." Every syllable made Trent's gut twist harder. Then Maddox did something unexpected. He opened the door slowly, stood up straight, and stretched. Despite his age, his presence was commanding. He stepped over to Riley and the agent, but instead of scolding anyone, he pointed at Trent. "Bring him here." Trent's blood ran cold. Captain Riley shot Trent a sharp look, part warning, part apology, then jerked his head. "You heard him. Let's go." Trent straightened his belt, wiped his palms on his pants, and walked slowly toward the three men, trying not to let the dread show on his face. Maddox watched him approach, eyes calm but unreadable, hands folded behind his back like a general awaiting a report. When Trent finally stood before him, Maddox studied him for a long moment. Not angry. Not smug. Just quiet. Measured. Then he spoke. "Tell me, Officer Mallory, what exactly did I do to warrant being pulled over?" Trent swallowed hard. "You were, briefly over the shoulder line. I thought it might be, erratic driving." "Did I appear confused?" Maddox asked, one brow raised. "No, sir." "Did I resist? Delay? Refuse your instructions?" "No, sir." "You complied fully." Maddox nodded. "Then tell me why, exactly, your tone was sharp. Why you leaned into my window like you were looking for trouble. Why you walked back to your cruiser already convinced I was one." Trent hesitated, but Maddox cut him off. "I don't need your excuses. I need you to listen." Maddox stepped closer. "There are people on these roads every day who actually are threats. But instead of staying sharp and fair, some officers like you, create tension where there is none. You assumed something about me. You don't even know what, do you?" Trent didn't answer. He couldn't. "You're lucky, officer," Maddox said, his voice still calm. "Because I'm not interested in ruining your career today. But make no mistake, if I report this, your days in uniform will be over by Friday." Trent felt the heat rise in his face. "I understand, sir." Maddox leaned back, gave a half-smile, and glanced toward the SUV. "Let's go," he told the agent. As Maddox walked away, Riley turned to Trent. "You don't know who that is, do you?" Trent shook his head slightly. Riley sighed. "He's not just a retired official. He oversaw federal ethics investigations into people like us. He still has access. Still has power. You just tried to intimidate the man who writes the rules." And just like that, the SUV pulled away, leaving Trent alone with the weight of a lesson he'd never forget. Trent stood there long after the SUV disappeared beyond the tree line, the morning sun rising higher, making his uniform feel heavier than usual. His jaw clenched. His thoughts raced. He had pulled over a man who could have ended his career with a single call, and yet, didn't. He didn't because he wanted to teach, not destroy. Captain Riley walked up beside him, quiet for a moment before speaking. "You're lucky, you know that." Trent didn't respond. Riley continued. "Henry J. Maddox used to be the deputy director of the Office of Professional Responsibility. The man helped write internal policy for federal conduct, signed off on disciplinary reviews for people in every major agency. Even mine." Trent finally exhaled. "Why didn't anyone warn us someone like that lived around here?" "Because he didn't want that," Riley said. "He moved out here to not be noticed. He still consults, still has friends in high places, but he just wants quiet. What he doesn't want is to be treated like a criminal just because he drives a '97 sedan and has gray hair." The word stung. Because they were true. Riley turned and started walking back to his vehicle, but paused one last time. "You've got potential, Mallory. But if you ever lead with attitude before understanding the situation, you won't last in this job. Next time, assume respect first." Trent nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." As the day stretched on and Trent resumed patrol, everything felt different. Every car he passed, every person he waved at, it all carried a weight now. Because he hadn't just learned who Maddox was. He had learned who he had become. And it was time to change that. 3 weeks later, Officer Trent Mallory sat alone in a department-mandated training seminar titled Implicit Assumptions Field Conduct. It was the kind of class most officers dreaded: PowerPoint slides, uncomfortable questions, awkward role-play exercises. But this time, Trent wasn't just enduring it. He was taking notes. Listening. Rethinking. After the session, he lingered behind while the others left, his thoughts still tangled in that morning near mile marker 12. Suddenly, the seminar door creaked open. A familiar voice echoed across the room. "Officer Mallory." Trent turned. There he was, Henry J. Maddox, standing just inside the doorway. No agent this time. No SUV. Just a man in a navy windbreaker and pressed slacks, holding a black notebook. Trent stood instinctively. "Sir." Maddox smiled faintly. "Relax. I'm not here in any official capacity. I didn't expect to see you here." "Good. I prefer it that way." He walked slowly toward the front desk and looked over the handouts. "I visit a few sessions a year. Quietly. Sit in back, observe. Occasionally speak, if asked." Trent hesitated. Then, that day, it changed something for me. Maddox looked up. "I know. That's why I let you walk away with a warning instead of a report. Some people need punishment. Others need a mirror." Trent nodded slowly. "You gave me both, in a way." A brief silence passed before Maddox extended a hand. "You've still got time to become a good one. Don't waste it." Trent took the handshake, firm, respectful. And as Maddox turned and walked out, the door swinging shut behind him, Trent knew this chapter wasn't about shame anymore. It was about growth. And for the first time in years, he felt like he was wearing the badge right. 2 months later, Officer Trent Mallory found himself standing before a packed community town hall meeting. It wasn't mandatory. He wasn't in uniform. And he wasn't speaking as an officer, but as a neighbor. The local council had opened the floor to public comments about police-community relations. In the past, Trent would have avoided events like this. Too much heat. Too many uncomfortable truths. But tonight, he waited for his turn. When his name was called, he stepped to the mic. People turned, some recognizing him, others not. He cleared his throat. "My name's Trent Mallory. I'm a patrol officer here in this district. And I'd like to say something, not in defense, but in ownership." The room quieted. "A few months ago, I pulled over a man. Older guy. Calm. Respectful. I treated him like a problem before I ever gave him a chance to be a person. That moment humbled me more than any reprimand could. He paused. I've been part of the problem. Not through violence or malice, but through assumption. Through forgetting that the badge isn't a shield to hide behind, but a reminder of the weight we carry every single time we stop someone. People murmured in surprise. A few heads nodded. I want to be better, Trent said. And I want this department to be better, too. I'll be meeting with our training division to build a new officer mentorship program, one that starts before the mistakes happen. He stepped back, heart pounding. No applause. No fanfare. Just quiet. Thoughtful silence. And that was enough. In the back row, unnoticed by many, Henry J. Maddox sat with arms crossed and a rare look of satisfaction on his face. He didn't need to speak. He didn't need to be seen. Because the message had landed. And for the first time in a long time, change had begun. 1 year later, the department's training academy had a new name, the Maddox Initiative. It wasn't officially titled after Henry J. Maddox, he had politely declined the honor, but everyone still called it that. The name stuck. Because everyone knew who had inspired it. Inside the academy, new recruits now sat through scenario-based sessions that went beyond just procedures. They learned patience, humility, and the weight of human dignity. Not from a manual, but from lived experience. And leading many of those sessions? Officer Trent Mallory. He stood at the front of the room, no longer stiff with authority, but grounded in purpose. His voice carried the authority of someone who had made mistakes, and owned them. Let me tell you all a story, he'd begin, pulling no punches. It started with a beige sedan and a man I misjudged in seconds. Recruits listened. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. It wasn't just a story about an officer who overstepped. It was about how one decision could change the way you serve, or the way you harm. Meanwhile, Henry J. Maddox remained quietly retired, occasionally visiting the academy through the side entrance, slipping into the back of the classroom with a notebook and a knowing smile. He never needed a title. His legacy now lived in every new recruit who chose to see the badge not as a symbol of power, but as a promise. It was a cloudy October afternoon when Officer Trent Mallory received an unexpected letter, handwritten, sealed in a plain envelope, no return address. He opened it carefully. Officer Mallory, I hear the academy is thriving. I've also heard your name come up more than once from new recruits, with respect. That matters more than medals. I wanted you to know, growth is rare. Rarer still when someone chooses it willingly. If the world had more peace officers and fewer law enforcers, we'd all sleep easier. You've made a choice. Now keep making it. H.J.M. Trent read the note twice, then set it gently on his desk. He didn't frame it. Didn't post it. But he folded it carefully and tucked it inside his notebook, the same one he used when he taught. That evening, as the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the academy's gravel lot, Trent stood outside watching the next class of cadets filter into the building. One of them paused at the door and asked, "Sir, is it true you used to be, like, rough on people?" Trent smiled without flinching. Yes. But I changed. And that's why I'm here, to make sure you never need to. The recruit nodded slowly, then stepped inside. And for Trent, that was enough. Because sometimes, redemption isn't loud. It's steady. Quiet. And it leaves behind a better path for others to follow. Nearly 2 years to the day after that fateful traffic stop, Officer Trent Mallory, now wearing the silver oak leaf pin of a department field mentor, got a call from the front desk at the academy. "There's someone asking for you," the clerk said. Didn't give a name. Said you'd understand. Trent's heart skipped. He stood, straightened his shirt, and made his way to the reception area. There, sitting calmly in a lobby chair, was Henry J. Maddox. Older now. A little thinner. But still sharp-eyed, still composed. He stood when he saw Trent and extended a hand. "I was in the area," Maddox said with a slight smile. "Thought I'd drop in. See how things are going." Trent chuckled. "You changed everything, you know that." Maddox shook his head. "No. You did. I just gave you the opportunity." Trent motioned him toward the hallway. "Let me show you what your opportunity built." They walked the halls together, walls lined with new guiding principles, photos of cadets in action, and quotes handwritten by graduates about empathy, judgment, and service. Maddox said little, but his eyes took in every word, every face. At the end of the tour, they stood near a small glass case by the stairs. Inside was a folded letter, that letter. Beside it, a plaque that read, "Accountability isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of the right one." H.J.M. Maddox turned to Trent, his voice low. "I didn't think you'd keep the letter." "I didn't keep it," Trent replied. "I shared it. Because it didn't just change me. It saved me." For a long moment, the two men stood silently, mentor and student, accidental allies, bound by a single roadside encounter that echoed far beyond flashing lights and a printed citation. And then Maddox placed a hand on Trent's shoulder. "Keep going," he said. 6 months after Henry J. Maddox's quiet visit, the city held its annual Civic Integrity Awards, usually a modest event honoring local leaders, teachers, and public servants who had made an impact without seeking attention. Trent had attended once before, years ago, as a spectator. This year, he was told to wear his formal dress blues, but wasn't told why. The auditorium filled slowly with community members, fellow officers, city officials, and even cadets from the academy. As Trent took a seat in the second row, he noticed familiar faces, Captain Riley, the clerk from the front desk, and even the agent from that black SUV years ago. But what stopped him cold was the sight of Henry J. Maddox, sitting quietly near the stage, wearing a simple black suit. A few speakers took the podium. Names were called. Plaques were handed out. Then the mayor stepped forward and adjusted the mic. "Tonight, we're giving a special award. One that was not requested, and certainly not expected. It's not just for service, it's for transformation. For showing this city that people can change, and that the ripple effect of integrity begins with one person making a better choice." She glanced to the side. "Officer Trent Mallory, please join us." The room erupted in applause. Trent stood slowly, stunned, heart pounding, and walked to the stage. The mayor handed him a small gold medallion inscribed with a single word, "Courage." As the applause died down, the mayor leaned in and said, "Someone very specific nominated you. Someone who once sat in your passenger seat." Trent looked to his right. Maddox gave a small nod. No smile. Just pride. Later, after the ceremony, they met briefly in the back hallway. "I thought you didn't believe in awards," Trent said with a grin. "I don't," Maddox replied. "But I believe in moments. And this one was earned." They shook hands. Not as strangers from opposite sides of a traffic stop, but as men who had changed each other's lives, one with quiet strength, the other with the humility to grow. The academy had just dismissed its largest graduating class yet. Officer Trent Mallory stood alone in the now empty auditorium, looking out over the rows of folded chairs, echoing with the energy of young recruits who'd just sworn in. Behind him, the double doors creaked open. Footsteps. Familiar. Henry J. Maddox entered quietly, his pace slower than before but his presence no less commanding. He carried a small box in one hand. "No speech today?" he asked with a glint of dry humor. Trent smiled. "They've heard enough of my voice for a lifetime." Maddox handed him the box. "Then let them carry this instead." Inside was a polished brass key. Plain, old-fashioned. On the tag, it simply read, "To the office that was once mine." Trent looked up, confused. "I don't understand." Maddox gave him a look that was firm, final. I've turned down every offer they've made to pull me back into federal service. But they keep asking. And this time, I gave them your name. Trent was speechless. You're ready, Maddox continued. Not because you were perfect, but because you weren't. And you faced it. Trent tried to speak but couldn't find the words. Maddox extended his hand one last time. The next chapter is bigger. And it needs people who remember how small mistakes can make big waves. They shook hands, long and steady, mentor to mentor, past to future. Later that night, as Trent sat in his patrol cruiser for what might be the last time, he turned off the engine and looked out across the same road where it all began. The mile marker still stood. The trees still cast shadows. But the man in the driver's seat was no longer the same. He was no longer just a cop. He was a guardian of the kind of integrity that doesn't make headlines, only history.